have to film this video, but it is pouring. Hello, good morning, or good evening whenever you are watching this. I hope you are doing well. My name is Catherine, and today we are talking about my top 10 books of 2020. A really fantastic reading year, despite it being a pretty rough year in general. I read so many wonderful books, so it was pretty hard for me to choose just 10. So these are all books that I have read this year for the first time, so while there may have been other books that I found fantastic, they were rereads, so they won't be included in on this list. These are just books that are brand new this year to me. This is a list of 10 of my favorites, as well as 5 honorable mentions. Starting off with our honorable mentions. First is The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis. This book is a Western/fantasy type book, which is really cool. Next is Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This book I totally fell in love with. It is a fantastic fantasy with an incredible magic system. Then we have You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. This book is such a sweet YA contemporary. This book is about a girl named Liz Lightly who really just finds her confidence and really comes into herself in this book. It is so wonderful. It was such a fun read and I totally fell in love with the characters. Then we have A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. This is the sequel to an absolutely remarkable thing. I thought it was a fantastic sequel. It's a sci-fi that really explores like human nature and is so fascinating. Last in these honorable mentions is Fable by Adrienne Young. One thing I really love about Adrienne Young's writing is her world building, and this one definitely you saw that wonderful complex world building. And it's a piratey book, which I love a good piratey book. All right, so those are my honorable mentions. Now let's move on to my actual top 10 books of 2020. Coming in at number 10 is The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Alire-Sayens. This book came to me at a time where I really needed it. It explores family as well as has a beautiful found family aspect. It really puts a focus on friendship and how important those friendship relationships are. This book follows Sal, who never really knew his father and only really knows his mother through stories that his adoptive father tells him. He is really struggling with his identity and where he fits in this world. This book had me crying at like 2 a.m. as all my favorite books do. I feel like Benjamin Alire-Sayens just really has a beautiful way with words, and the way that he crafts them together makes you feel all of the things. I don't know. Obviously, I am not someone who is good with words, but he just has such a way of writing. I love all of his books that I've read. Overall, between the writing style, the themes of the book, the characters, and the character development, this book is just so beautiful. At number 9 is I'll Be the One by Lila Lee. This is another YA contemporary about a girl who enters a competition to become a K-pop idol. Sky does not fit the typical mold of a K-pop idol. She is plus sized and therefore a lot of people doubt her abilities in performing, and especially in the dancing aspects. Her confidence in this book is just something that I feel like we need to see so much more in books, especially about plus size characters. She takes no shit from anyone. She knows who she is and is willing to prove everyone wrong. This book also explores her relationship with her mother in a really interesting way, and it also talks a lot about the Korean American experience, which is really cool. At number 8, we have Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This book is about a trans boy named Yadriel. He is trying to prove to his family that he deserves to be a brujo, which is kind of like a male witch in his culture, capable of summoning spirits, which is really cool. It is paranormal because, of course, it's summoning spirits. Also, there's some romance, which I absolutely love, and there's also a really cool mystery aspect to it, which I didn't really expect. One thing that I really loved about this book that I feel like stood out from a lot of others is his relationship with his cousin. I feel like a lot of the times in YA contemporaries, there's a lot of focus on that like romance that's happening, which there was in this one, and I feel like they went through so much wonderful development, and I feel like there was fantastic chemistry between Yadriel and Julian, but I feel like Yadriel's relationship with Maritza was so strong and so unique in a lot of like YA contemporaries that I loved it. Coming in at number 7 is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I feel like this book was all over BookTube when it first came out, as well as it should be. It follows 2 sisters who didn't know that they were sisters until their father died. One grew up in New York, one grew up in the Dominican Republic. So when their father dies in a plane crash, they finally learn about each other and the secret life that their father had. In this story, they're kind of reconciling that relationship that they had with their father, and that he obviously didn't tell them the full truth, as well as learning what it means to suddenly have this sister. This book is written in verse form, and Elizabeth Acevedo just has such a wonderful way of crafting her books. Again, this book is very heavy on like the characters and the character development and everything, which is something that I personally look for in books. I really like it when they have that sort of character development. At number 6 is A Million Junes by Emily Henry. This book kind of came out of nowhere for me. I picked it up at a used bookstore because I recognized Emily Henry's name from her book Beach Reads, which is also another fantastic book. I definitely expected it to be a little bit more like Beach Reads, where it's like an adult romance. But this book is actually a YA magical realism. And wow, the world that this takes place in, obviously it's our world, but the magic in this world is so cool. It's a forbidden romance. It kind of has 2 dueling families, very like Romeo and Juliet-esque. The writing style, the characters, everything about this book was just so beautiful. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I had no idea what was going to happen next. There's ghosts, there's like a mystery of like what happened in the family's past that makes them hate each other so much. It's such a beautiful, wonderful story. Number 5 is Lovely War by Julie Berry. This book was pretty hyped last year, and I just picked it up for the first time this year, and wow. It is a historical fiction with dueling timelines. The first timeline is the gods, so it is Aphrodite telling this love story, which is our second timeline, to her husband Hephaestus after she and Ares gets caught together. That one takes place during World War II, and then the other love story that she's telling takes place in World War I. The way that it is written is my jam. It has a very like theatrical-esque element to it, just the way it goes back and forth between the Aphrodite timeline and our other timeline, the World War I timeline, which has 2 sets of lovers in it. Although it does focus more on one. I love the way it's crafted. I love that it makes Aphrodite so much more of a like more sympathetic god. I feel like Aphrodite gets a really bad rep. Overall, the way this story is crafted, the love story, the way like Aphrodite makes little appearances and will do things like shift someone's head so that they see someone at just the right time and things like that. It's just it's so good. At number 4, we have Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. This is the 3rd book in the Diviner series. I mean, I would say basically the entire Diviner series would be number 4, but specifically that 3rd book. This book takes place in 1920s New York, and it is about this group of people who have abilities. So some of them are able to walk through dreams, some of them are able to like read objects and see the past of this object. There's ghosts, there's mystery, there is love and romance. It talks about race, it talks about sexuality, it talks about so much. It is a huge cast of characters, but all the characters are so well developed, especially like Evie. She goes through some of the best development. From the beginning, she like is very annoying. Like she's just wow. By the time you get to that last book, she goes through so much and learns so much and goes through so much development. I was at the edge of my seat the entire time, and I think that Libba Bray also just has such a wonderful way with characters. It is hugely character focused. It is heartbreaking at times. Again, had me crying quite a lot. I love this book. All right, into the top 3. Number 3 for me was Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I cannot believe this book took me so long to pick up. It is a sort of like Iliad retelling from the perspective of Patroclus. It follows Patroclus and Achilles as they meet, as they go into the Trojan War. Wow, so good. It is a beautifully tragic love story. If you love Greek myths and those like ancient Greek stories, I highly recommend it if you haven't read it already, because I feel like so many people already have. I mean, it's a pretty old book. It came out a while ago and it just took me a long time to pick up, but I'm so glad that I did. The way that it's crafted and the language that it is used just creates such a wonderful like atmospheric experience as well. Overall, I just think that Madeline Miller has such a wonderful way with words, and this book hurt me. It hurt me so much. And I loved every second of it. Coming in at the number 2 spot, this one actually might be a little bit of a surprise, but that is Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This book is unlike any other book that I've ever read, so while I may like the story of some of the other books slightly more, it was such a unique experience that it earned the number 2 spot. It is a multimedia book, so it's basically this series of files and like audio recordings and message threads back and forth. It follows these 2 characters who had been in a relationship and broke up that morning, but then by the afternoon their planet was being invaded and they had to escape. They end up on 2 separate spaceships and they're trying to communicate back and forth to each other because something is wrong, something is happening. If you read this book, I highly recommend reading it physically because of the like multimedia aspect of it. It is so like beautifully visually. I wish I had my copy with me so I could show you all. There's just some pages that are gorgeous, so beautifully designed, but also listening to it on audio because the production value of the audiobook is incredible. It has a full cast of characters and it also has like all these like spaceship sound effects, and it's gorgeous. I'm absolutely obsessed. I want to get the other books as soon as possible. I just haven't been able to get a hold of the other 2 books, so yeah. And finally, the number 1 book that I have read this year is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. When I say that I am a sucker for retellings, and especially King Arthur retellings, this book is the best example. Although I don't know if I can classify it as like a retelling or like a continuation of like the King Arthur story. It takes place in modern times and it is about this girl who finds the secret society of descendants of the Knights of the Round Table. They are tasked with keeping the world safe from these demon creatures that are able to cross over from wherever they live, the sort of like shadow realm. This book has so many aspects to it. First of all, there is like the King Arthur aspect to it and the like descendants of the Round Table. There is a romance. It talks a lot about race and how unfortunately so many like African Americans in our country don't know their history. They don't know their family. They don't know where they've come from because they were stolen. It is absolutely heartbreaking at times. I cried so much. There also is family relationship aspects where the main character, Bree, her mother, like starts off where her mother had died in a car crash, and she is now learning that she maybe didn't know as much about her mom as she thought she did, and her mom may have had a secret life that she hid from her family. This book is so fast-paced. It just draws you in and makes you want more. I cannot wait for the next book to come out. I need it to come out ASAP. I haven't even like announced what the name of it is yet, but I like already know, like as soon as they do, I am pre-ordering it. I'm getting a copy because wow, definitely my favorite book of the year. So there you go. Those are my top 10 or top 15, but top 10 books of 2020. For any of your favorites on this list, let me know. Have you read any of these books? tell me your opinions unless you didn't like them. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, bye!